Hello and welcome to coverage of round number 5 here at Grand Prix Montreal. Murray Bertholdi joined by Reed Duke here in the booth. Alexander Hayne there on your left in Boros, and Robert Smith on your right. Also in Boros, it looks like it's going to be a Boros beatdown here, Reed.
Yeah, this should be a good one. Alexander Hayne, always nice to see him out at an event. Montreal native and one of the best Canadian players, maybe ever, but certainly of the last half decade.
Fresh-faced recruit, the first play of the game here for Hayne. Verandi shieldmate for Robert Smith. I've mentioned really liking the fresh-faced recruit in Boros. Not only does a first strike on your turn, but it's a great target to mentor onto, and boom, Wojak Bodyguard is a perfect thing to do just that.
Yeah, and a great example already of why you like the fresh-faced recruit. Alexander Hayne plays it on turn 2. Robert Smith plays his 2-drop and cannot block fresh-faced recruits, at least not successfully.
And the Shieldmate's able to be played in a Boros deck thanks to the fact that it has kind of that hybrid green-white mana as one of its colored casting costs. Sky Knight Legionnaire for Smith is able to get an attack here for 4.
Yeah, and there you see the Shieldmate attacking straight through Wojak Bodyguard. That one can't do anything on its own, but it is part of a really nice curve out, which Alexander Hayne is hoping to force the action on this turn. I mean, just on the board, he's got a nice attack. He can mentor onto the fresh-faced recruit, hit for 6.
And that is what's going to happen. Into the red zone go Hayne's creatures. Mentor, fresh-faced recruit, learns a thing or two from the Wojak Bodyguard, becomes a 3/2 first striker. Fourth land hits the table here for Hayne. Robert Smith is tapped out this turn. Rampaging Monument is the play. Comes in with 3 +1/+1 counters. If he plays another gold card, we'll see another counter added to that monument.
So it's a good play to the board. It will stop the Shieldmate from attacking if Robert Smith doesn't have anything. 3/3 trample is a solid body, and with even one more multicolored card, keeping in mind that even those fresh-faced recruits and Vernati Shieldmates, those count as multicolored cards. The Rampaging Monument can grow larger.
Yeah, we've seen it been played in a few decks today, which has been kind of cool. Now Alexander Hayne here needs to take, I was almost going to say take a risk, make a decision here with risk factor on the table. Either you take 4 or you let your opponent draw 3 cards.
That's a really strong card, risk factor. Either mode is well worth the 3 mana, particularly when you factor in that you can jumpstart it.
Right.
Your opponent's going to be hard-pressed to take 8 damage if the game's going in any kind of normal fashion where you have other stuff going on. But I will say that it's not at its best in this situation. We have a close race where the players really need to be playing to the board and keeping pace. So what happened here is Robert Smith devotes his mana and his turn to attacking Alexander Hayne's life total, but he continues to fall behind on the board, and it might not work out well for him.
All right, we're going to continue adding to the board here for Hayne as well. Goblin Cratermaker hits the table, and it's an all-out swing with the rest of the creatures for Hayne. Cratermaker has actually really impressed me. Sometimes I just use it to straight up kill something.
Yeah, definitely. And Hayne could have done that.
Yeah.
But I do want to point out that the reason Alexander Hayne cast it in his pre-combat main phase is to take away Robert Smith's ability to block and use something like Take Heart or Integrity.
Sure.
Because that's one of the ways Robert Smith could have gotten back into this game, is to play a 1-mana spell that allowed him to kill off an attacker, take a little bit less damage. But with the Cratermaker in play, Hayne could just kill the blocking creature in response. So there's really no way for Robert Smith to have a profitable combat step. And indeed, he does have to pack up his cards.
Yeah, awesome stuff there. Alexander Hayne takes down game number 1 versus Robert Smith here. Boros on Boros. Violence. Legion versus Legion. There you get a look at both of our players in the feature match area. Unfortunately, no giant elephant lurking behind them this time, like last round. I went up and said hi to the elephant. Very impressive.
Does he speak English?
He does, it turns out. The venerated Loxodon can speak a few languages. BDM went up and gave it a high 5 because he really wanted his +1/+1 counter, I think. Not sure if he got it. Whatever, Marshall. He gave me a thumbs down on that joke. Get out of here. Both players heading to their sideboards. Now, what do you try and think of here if you're sideboarding in a mirror match, especially an aggressive one? Are you trying to be more aggressive than your opponent, or do you try and kind of pull back and hit the brakes a little bit?
That's a great question, and actually the Boros mirror is one of the most fascinating guild-on-guild matchups because you're both trying to run each other down, but you have to do something special if you want to, well, break the mirror, if you want to break parity, because otherwise a lot of your cheap creatures are going to trade off, and it'll be hard for one player to gain a big advantage. So there's sort of two elements of what you want to focus on when you're sideboarding. The first is how am I going to keep pace, and a card like Righteous Blow is the perfect thing to turn to for that role in a Boros mirror. Just a cheap, efficient card where you can make sure you're not going to get run over. The second thing is, if we do trade off a lot, how am I going to get an edge in that mid or late game? So going a little bit bigger with potent single creatures that can dominate the battlefield would be good. Anything that can give you insurance against mana flood, like a jumpstart card or a mana sink, or anything that can provide a 2-for-1 advantage, but sometimes those can be hard to come by.
What do you think of a card like Demotion, which removes a blocker? Is that something you're necessarily worried about, or is it kind of the same effect that you're looking for as, you know, to deal 2 damage for 1 mana?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Demotion because that's actually an example of a card that I might put in the main deck of my Boros deck because I'm so focused on aggression and I want to take out opposing blockers. But it's one that I might be looking to sideboard out in a Boros mirror because if my opponent's trying to kill me, I need to be prepared to play defense in addition to offense.
There's a look at Demotion there. I saw this very early on in the format and was so impressed with it. It's exactly what Boros wants. You're attacking me? I don't care. How about you can't block?
That actually reminds me of another card that's kind of sweet in Boros, kind of unassuming, but Maniacal Rage.
Yeah.
Can either go on your mentor creature to unload some damage, or you can put it on your opponent's creature to make that not block. That one's a little more risky than Demotion because you take a big crack back when your opponent's ready to attack with the Maniacal Raged creature, but if all you care about is dealing damage to your opponent.
And what was it at Worlds of the Team Series Finals? Owen put it in his deck and he wasn't really into it, but somebody convinced him.
That was the team dynamic of that event. Owen was sort of bullied into putting Maniacal Rage in his deck, but then it came through in the clutch and he was happy he did.
Cool stuff. I actually, the final round of my pre-release was for the undefeated victory, Boros versus Boros, and I got out Boros.
Oh no!
Turned out, but it was like you mentioned, it was very interesting. You know, a lot of really difficult decisions. Where first of all, I think Mentor is a super interesting mechanic and makes Boros gameplay more dynamic than sometimes it can be. But especially in the mirror, I just sat there and I'm like, you know what? I just don't know what I'm supposed to do in this situation.
Yeah, if you get behind, it can be hard to catch up because of the mentor mechanic. The advantages spiral out of control.
Ooh, tough one here for Robert Smith, who's going to have to go down to 5. Although, that being said, if you're in a guild that is the most fine with going down to 5, it might be Boros.
Well, Alexander Hayne and Robert Smith trying to out-Boros one another here. It looks like Hayne is going to stick with 6 cards. Robert Smith going down to 5.
And we do have access to players' deck lists up here in the booth. Do we have anything particularly exciting that you noticed when you're taking a quick peek through either of these? Is there an Aurelia hiding out in any of them?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the first thing my eyes are usually drawn to when I look at these players' deck lists is the multicolored cards.
Oh, yes.
Because those are usually the cards that provide a strong incentive to go into a certain color combination. And yes,
right.
Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice, does appear in Alexander Hayne's deck.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Yeah, I had the honor, I guess I'll use that word, of playing against it at the pre-release.
The dubious honor.
The dubious honor, yeah. Ornery Goblin here, first play for Robert Smith. Fresh-faced recruit for Hayne. And you know, this actually does it here. This is very interesting. Sky Knight Legionnaire and the Goblin both able to get in.
Wow, good start for Robert Smith on 5 cards. This is just what you need.
All right, so a Torch Courier and the Fresh-Faced Recruit now swinging in. And Torch Courier, yeah, I mean, not sure if that was in his main at all, but talk about an aggressive card. 1/1 with haste, and you can sacrifice it to give something else haste.
Yeah, it does more than it looks like.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it's got the haste, it's a body to mentor onto, and then sometimes even giving haste on a key turn to something bigger like, well, say a Rubble Belt Boar,
Right.
a Hammer Dropper, something
Yeah,
like
that's a good
that.
point.
Swath Cutter Giant. So Torch Courier, I'm not going to say it's a good card. You would probably rather have Goblin Banneret or even Healer's Hawk in that slot. But if you just want a cheap body, it's passable.
Rubble Belt Boar here, you mentioned, by the way, able to get an extra damage for Hane and puts down a 3/3 body that would be able to trade with that Goblin.
So Robert Smith with the good start, but stumbling a little. He hasn't had a play in a couple of turns. But can he produce something here? True Fire Captain.
Ooh, that's a nice one. True Fire Captain, one of the cycle that we see from the different guilds. That's double red, double white. And in fact, they each have their own double colored spell for 4 mana.
Yeah, True Fire Captain actually amazing in this game state, this close race situation where the True Fire Captain, if it gets into combat, is going to deal any damage that it takes directly to Alexander Hayne's life total. So that makes it tough for Hayne to attack, but it makes it tough for him to block too.
Yeah.
Particularly, you're going to get a Mentor trigger and a creature that's very, very difficult or painful to block.
All right, so it looks like we're going to see an aura here. Candlelight Vigil on the Fresh-Faced Recruit, giving it +3/+2 and Vigilance, which makes sense.
Alexander Hayne really trying to spin straw into gold here with
Yeah.
some of the bottom of the barrel Boros cards.
Yeah, there's Hunted Witness.
Aurelia, the high of his deck, certainly counterbalanced by the Torch Courier, Candlelight Vigil lows. But those cards, they're not good cards, but they're okay cards to have as your 22nd, 23rd card in an otherwise focused Boros deck. And we actually do see Alexander Hayne making pretty good use of them.
Robert Smith down to 7, Alexander Hayne at 10. Now, big decision time here for Smith, for sure.
Yeah, the Hunted Witness is a nice foil to the True Fire Captain because it can actually block and save Hayne some damage at a low cost, both in
Twice.
terms of a low cost of a creature to lose and a low cost of damage to take from True Fire Captain's triggered ability.
Just last night I was playing and I died because I couldn't block a True Fire Captain in either way with a creature or just letting it hit me.
Yeah, I believe it. It really puts you to a tough decision.
Mentor 4/3 for 4 mana. Great deal there. Rock Charger is a follow-up play from Robert Smith. Sky Knight Legionnaire able to get in for a couple of points of damage, knocks Hayne down to 8.
So Smith leaves the True Fire Captain on defense, setting up for a potential win next turn with the Rock Charger. And now what is Hayne going to do if he can't get past the True Fire Captain? Things are tough. Yeah, if Hayne has no removal spell, then he's in trouble. He can't really attack through the True Fire Captain. He can't get rid of the Rock Charger. So he's really looking for a way to win the game, a removal spell, or at least a flying blocker.
2 cards left in hand for Hayne here. Five mana available. Both of these players here in round 5 sitting undefeated at 4-0. Yeah, True Fire Captain not making Hayne's life easy at all in this spot. All right, looks like an attack here with the Rubble Belt Boar and the Fresh-Faced Recruit. So it's swinging in for 8 here.
So Smith definitely does not want to take the hit from the fresh-faced recruit.
No.
Because then he'd be dead to a variety of combat tricks. I could see, sure, yeah, putting the True Fire Captain to unload some damage. He decides to let the Boar through, which is somewhat safe, and leaves him the Ornery Goblin as an attacker that he can give flying with Rock Charger next turn.
All right, so Smith falls to 4. Hain falls to 3 off of the sort of like hit me, I hit you right back damage there from the True Fire Captain.
Yeah, that was 5 damage. It's no joke.
Okay, so it looks like everybody's going into the air, and Hain scoops him up. Robert Smith able to tie things up here in this Boros mirror versus Hain.
And on a mulligan to 5,
Yes.
nonetheless. You mentioned it. Boros is a guild that can do some powerful things with a small number of cards. So you get a good start if you can get Mentor going, and of course the hero of that game, the True Fire Captain.
I'm so curious. I wonder if Hain had anything in his hand, or if he was just holding lands, because if I was Robert Smith, I would have been sitting there sure he had a trick. Just from his body language and the way that he presented himself and thought about that attack before he made it.
Yeah, Hain is a consummate professional. You're never going to see him give up before the last point of damage is dealt.
And that's something you've always advocated for as well, Reed.
Yeah, definitely. Why make it easy for your opponent when you can make it hard on them? Make them kill you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're heading into game number 3, the deciding game here in round 5 with our 2 players. By the way, Hain mentioned he got platinum this year without top 8ing anything. He thinks this is the only second time in history that this has happened.
Is that right?
I have no way to confirm or deny that.
We'll have to get the Pro Tour historian on the case.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty cool, if that's true. That's the way to do it. Just fly under the radar. Still get plat.
And that's actually, you know, in a way, it's more impressive to achieve a status when you've had fewer spikes, because
Sure.
the people that
consistent.
win big events, it's like you're almost there. You
Yeah.
don't really have to have a much of a big year after that. But to actually achieve what Alexander Hain achieved, that requires a level of consistency and consistent excellence. That's not easy.
Okay, I've got to ask you a question, Reed. Something that people have been kind of talking about a little bit on the fringe, which is the card Unmoored Ego, which allows you to take away even lands from your opponent, search their graveyard, hand, and library. Is that something you would ever consider using, bringing in against somebody who has, for instance, a Niv Mizzet and you can't beat it, or if you want to take somebody off of any color of mana?
I would say a hard no for the color of mana thing, but a cautious maybe for the Niv Mizzet thing.
Okay. Wow.
It would have to be pretty extreme. Like the matchup would have to be so slow, and I would have to say, okay, I'm comfortable beating every other card in their deck except for this one that I really have to get rid of. But yeah, I mean, it's within the realm of possibility. This is one of those cards, if you completely ignore it, never play it, never pick it in draft for the entire time that Guilds of Ravnica is out, you probably won't be making a mistake. But yes, if you wanted to have a thought experiment, we could probably construct some situation where it's right to board it in.
All right, here we go. We're underway in game number 3. Healer's Hawk kicking things off for Hain. 10th District Guard for Robert Smith. And this lifelink could go a long way for Hain, potentially.
Healer's Hawk is a really impressive card, and particularly something you're going to be interested in these Boros mirrors, where you mentioned the lifelink being really good in a close race situation, and we've seen that Alexander Hain has plenty of ways to pump it up between Mentor, Candlelight Vigil, pump spells. Anything that can make the Healer Hawk bigger can make it into a really important force on the battlefield.
Sky Knight Legionnaire comes in swinging, as is its way for Robert Smith. But enabling another attack here with the Healer's Hawk. Pinging in for another one and gaining Hain another little life. Here's the Monument, rampaging its way onto the battlefield. I have yet to see that thing get another counter from a multicolored creature. Come on.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it usually eats a removal spell
Yeah,
right away.
right.
People are scared of this card.
And they should be,
rightly
probably.
So.
Great art as well.
This is one of these cards that we're going to see a lot today, and maybe a tiny bit less tomorrow, because almost anybody that opens this in sealed deck, they're going to put it in their deck, regardless of their colors, regardless of their strategy. It's just a good enough bread and butter card. Almost, not quite on the level of an Icy Manipulator, but in the same vein where it's like just a good artifact that's in everybody's deck.
Gird for Battle here from Robert Smith is going to put a pair of +1/+1 counters on the 10th District card and the Legionnaire, swinging for 6 here.
Gird for Battle, highly efficient card. Only 1 mana allows you to keep attacking through big blockers like that Rampaging Monument, and can definitely be part of some very, very effective draws out of Boros.
Ornery Goblin comes down second for Smith, Hayne down to 14. There's the Goblin, having a bad day. Nobody ever listens to my complaints, not even when I use the listening stick. Oh my god. Don't hit me with that thing, dude.
I've been impressed with the Ornery Goblin.
So have I, actually.
I thought it was just an average filler level 2-drop, but it's been better than that. Hard to get into combat with, trades with 3 toughness creatures.
Yep. There's a lot of X1s running around, too. Healer's Hawk and the Monument hit the red zone for Alexander Hayne. Speaking of X1s, do you know what my new favorite card is in the set?
What's that?
Cosmotronic Wave.
Yeah. Be pretty good in this matchup.
Oh, man. I 4-for-1 people with that card. It's so beautiful.
4-for-1?
All right, in come the 3 threes for Robert Smith. Race has been pretty close so far. Life totals remaining really tight. Hayne down to 9 here on this swing, though. And we're convoking.
Oh, wow. A big sideboard card for Robert Smith.
Locks on Restorer. Gain 4 life.
It's a way to change a race in your favor.
Absolutely.
And representing a good blocker on the ground here.
I tweeted out yesterday, who has ever cast a Loxodon Restorer thinking they were casting their venerated Loxodon? Because I've done it 3 times now. And then I've been like, where are my counters? I tweeted that and somebody wrote, my play group gave it a nickname, which is Disappointment Dumbo.
Oh, no. It's not too disappointing here, though.
No, it is not.
I would take it.
All right, well, here is another one of the auras that Hayne is packing in his deck. Maniacal Rage here. That Hawk is angry.
I guess that it's particularly disappointing if you purposely tap all of your creatures.
That's exactly what I would do. And then I'm like,
guess I have a 3/4.
Oh, great. Yeah. So here's another life point swing in Hayne's favor this time. Hawk getting in for 3 here, as well as the Rampaging Monument.
Yeah, this is what we were talking about, souping up that Healer's Hawk, making it very potent, hard to race. So Robert Smith thinking about a block here. The card I guess that would blow him out most is like a Swift Justice or an... Okay, this is not a disaster. I mean, it's good for Hayne that he was able to kill the blocking creature, but it's not as though he had a different gold multicolored instant that could really blow out Robert Smith. So I think having seen that, Robert's probably glad that he blocked.
Yeah. So Hayne also is going to get 2 life from that attack on top of the life gain from the Healer's Hawk because of Take Heart. So life totals back up to 14 apiece.
Yeah, whoever's on life totals for us is doing a great job. There's a lot of ups and downs in this game.
Intrusive Pack Beast taps down Hayne's last blocker, enabling an all-out attack here from Smith. Getting in for 8. Hayne down to 6. How many pack beasts do you want in your Boros deck in sealed?
I think it's a filler card. I mean, I'm not
Okay.
disappointed to play with it, but it's not. I'm not excited either.
Hawk in for 3.
I do think it's pretty good in this Boros mirror, particularly because of the vigilance.
That's a good point. It does have vigilance.
Boy, these life totals. Hayne just gained
Gosh.
7 life on that turn.
What?
Just when you think he's on the ropes.
He was down to 6. Now he's back up to 13. Robert Smith knocked down to 11. This has been a swingy game. Rubble Belt board, adding a little bit more swing to the board here and attack in with the pack beast for 5.
Got to figure Hayne's blocking this with something. Either
Yeah.
the Monument or the Loxodon. I'm not sure which.
The elephant jumps in front and makes a trade here.
And for the first time in this game, the Sky Knight Legionnaire does not attack. Robert Smith is really finally ready to slow down and offer a trade with the Healer's Hawk. Hayne will likely not oblige that trade. He'll probably wait until he has another way to pump up the Hawk or a way to remove the opposing flyer.
Rubble Belt boar here for Hayne will pump up. Ooh, and the Hawk is getting in there too. The Fire Urchin gets another +2/+0. 2 mana left up, red and white for Hayne, representing potentially anything from like a Sure Strike to any number of combat tricks. Smith,
Yeah.
you see him kind of sigh here, is like, well, I feel like I got to do it.
Okay, so Hayne does go ahead and trade here. I guess he just wants to make sure he banks that 3 life while he can. And keep in mind, the Maniacal Raged creature can't block, so if you're not attacking, you're not doing anything.
Smith falls down to 8. Hayne buffs back up to 16. Ornery Goblin getting in there. Hayne's like, whatever. Down to 14. Throws it back over to Hayne.
And now we have the situation that sort of outlined when we were going to sideboarding, which is that we have parity, and it's a player who can find a mana sink, a jumpstart card, a 2-for-1, a big creature to stick and dominate the battlefield. We're no longer at that aggressive early stage of the game. We're now at top deck battle, and Hayne finds True Fire Captain, which is really strong.
True Fire Captain also adding another counter to that Rampaging Monument. Parhelion Patrol for Robert Smith, a card that I absolutely adore.
Yeah, I found almost any creature that says Mentor on it to be pretty effective.
Even things like the Blade Instructor, are, I said, well, it's got 1 toughness. Why am I interested in this? The Mentor ability is so strong, and it's going to trade with something in combat.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. Everybody swings on in.
So this is a 10-point attack, 6 of it trample. The True Fire Captain, of course, difficult to block. And if Hayne has any kind of instant to back up his creatures, this is going to go really badly for Robert Smith. So Smith could take the damage from the Monument and block the Fire Urchin to try to get a profitable exchange, but this puts him down to 1 on the board. Any kind of instant would make it lethal.
So we'll order the patrol first. Hayne picking up his cards, at the very least, making a show like he's thinking about something here.
Okay, so I'm loving the precision from the players.
Yep.
doing everything in order, which is first order blockers, then resolve the Ornery Goblin trigger, then resolve the True Fire Captain trigger. Now it's Alexander Haynes' priority. Is he going to do anything? Looks like no.
All right, so we are going to see that a bunch of creatures trading off here, but Smith falls down to 1. Hayne
Okay.
plays the land and passes the turn.
I mean, it's not over. If Smith can out top deck Alexander Haynes from this position, he can still win this game despite being at 1 life.
Ooh, Silent Dart?
It's not great. Can't take out the monument. Smith's still obligated to double block because that Rampaging Monument does have trample, but looks like just a couple of lands in hand for Alexander Haynes.
Wow. The dart costs 4.
Is Smith not attacking with his Parhelion Patrol?
Oh, I don't know. It has Vigilance.
It does have Vigilance.
And there is Candlelight Vigil to give it double Vigilance, essentially. And now we get a Mentor trigger. Uh-oh. Hayne looks to be in quite some trouble here.
It's still a fragile situation for Robert Smith because Hayne could just take the damage and then find an answer to the Parhelion Patrol.
True.
But looks like he wants to cut the clock and maybe just draw to a burn spell.
Is he running something like Direct Current, potentially? Inescapable Blaze?
I don't see it.
All right.
I don't see it.
Just another land for Hayne. Back over to Robert Smith. Attacks in. That Vigilant Parhelion Patrol. Can Hayne find anything off the top of his deck to remain undefeated in this tournament? How about his best card? There's Aurelia, and there's a Silent Dart.
Oh, no.
It's not enough.
Yeah, well, it sort of is.
Sort
I mean,
of.
you can block and then use the Silent Dart to finish off the Parhelion Patrol.
Okay.
And geez, Aurelia doesn't even, it can't trigger on the Rampaging Monument. That's probably the one. Oh no,
yeah.
it can. It can give +2/+0, but not either of the bonus abilities.
Yeah. Okay, so there you go. There was the block and the Silent Dart finishing off the Parhelion Patrol, but we have a Boros Challenger follow-up play from Robert Smith.
He needs something.
And there's a handshake. Robert Smith takes down this match 2-1 over Alexander Hayne in the Battle of the Boros. That last game was really cool to watch, very, very swingy.
Talk about a close one. I mean, Alexander had Robert Smith down to 1 life after a tremendous amount of life gain.
Yes.
Well, from both players. I mean, we must have seen 55 damage dealt in that game, and it was finally Alexander Hayne that went down despite Scott being at 1.
Yeah, really interesting stuff there in the Boros matchup.
Robert Smith.
Yeah, Robert Smith. Just proving how essential sideboarding is in these limited games. We talked about a little bit earlier as well. But more Magic to watch on the way in just a minute. Don't go anywhere.